crack-smoking gent, son of the president. Lately his paintings have been selling. Hunter has no craft, man, it's all just graft. I tell you he's a felon. Where's Hunter's laptop? I saw Hunter Biden get another pass. That laptop they won't open. While Donald Trump they continue to harass. For anything they're groping. Where's Hunter's laptop? The FBI has had it for 3 years. The content they have sat on, protecting Hunter and the big guy. The rule of law they've spat on. Where's Hunter's laptop? He's a crack-smoking gent, son of the president. Lately his paintings have been selling. Hunter has no craft, man, it's all just graft. I tell you he's a felon. Where's Hunter's laptop? I saw Hunter Biden get another pass. That laptop they won't open. While Donald Trump they continue to harass. For anything they're groping. Where's Hunter's laptop?
And welcome to A Life with Mary Walter. I actually got Mary Walter Radio. Life with Mary Walter is Tuesdays. Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. Look at that, I got them mixed up. Look who is with me, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. I am so excited. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Mary, you're saving me from a board meeting, so no, it's thank you.
Wait a minute, is that a compliment? I don't know.
It is. Trust me, crusty old people are a beautiful you. I mean,
oh, you say that to all the girls.
You know,
So
I hope they're not
sweet.
listening. Just saying. Yeah, I was like,
So just a little background. I got to know Tony through when I was working on the radio station in Washington, D.C. Tony would come in and would co-host when my co-host was out. So Tony was one of the wonderful people, and he was so kind. Tony here, are you still in the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C.? Is there
so
still a
my
thing about
Bond
you there?
moment, yeah. So people can Google Tony Shaffer, spelling, you know, you see it, and Bond moment. So they still have it on their YouTube channel, and they're going to rotate our Bond moments through the new museum. So for those of you who went through the old one, there was the Bond villain wing. I'm not a Bond villain, but they had us there anyway.
You could be, though.
Just saying. And then so they had my Bond moment, which by all accounts was the most popular because it was the most James Bondish. And I was joking with Mike Pompeo back when he was director of CIA, and we were talking about this because he asked me about it. And I said, Mike, I had to really put my thinking cap on to come up with a moment that didn't involve me killing somebody. So I came up with one. So there you go. So there's your Bond moment. That's PG, family friendly. So
well, very cool. And Tony was kind enough to take me and my husband and I, anyway, and 4 friends of ours through the Spy Museum, and we got the best tour. We had so much fun, and I don't think you knew what you got yourself into when you're like, yeah, your friends are in town, let's go. And
yeah.
I don't know.
No, and the old one was great, but the new one's great too. My friend Chris Costa, Colonel Chris Costa, who I was in combat with in Afghanistan, has taken over as executive director. He's doing a great job of really jazzing it up. And there's a little bit of woke there, just saying. But if you can get past that, there's a good amount of espionage history there. So I do recommend people go see it. So
well, thank you. Tony is also a Newsmax contributor. I would like to make that clear as well. Give you credit for that. Kudos to you. Congratulations. That's a big deal. So that's good. They're hiring good people. And he is also the author of a really good book called Operation Dark Heart. Dark Heart. I have a hard time saying Dark Heart. Operation Dark Heart. Great book. And actually, we lost him.
No, I'm still here.
That. Oh, you're still there. Okay.
I don't know what happened. I touched something.
I didn't touch anything.
No, it was me.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me bring this back up. Hold on.
Well, while you're there, the book Operation Dark Heart, James, who you know, who's usually here, James asked me to get a copy of the book. He loves these type of books. And there you are. Welcome back.
There, it's right. It's right up there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There it is. There you go. Yeah.
Well, I'll get him one eventually here. See?
Oh, yeah. There you go. It's a really good book, though. I have to tell you, because Tony was kind enough to give me two. One for me, which I read, and then also you signed one for my friend, right? And he was so excited. James was so excited when he got that book, when I gave that to him. So he's going to be very upset that he missed you. That you're in lieu of him. So he's going to be upset about that. I would like to thank Jim Gossett Comedy for the song Parody. Yes, Bill had said that was Hunter's Laptop is the best parody so far. Yeah, that was very good. It was him this time. Usually you need your IT department after a kitty, yeah. I call my husband my IT department because usually one of the cats walks on the keyboard or something and we have problems. So. Well,
this is actually my office, so it's a multi-use office, and I've actually got guns and helmets close by too. So it's all for purpose.
I would like it noted. You did promise to take me shooting, and we never did that.
We can still do it. You got to come down here where I live now in Edenton, North Carolina. It's great. Plenty of open spaces and things to go.
Farther away. It's farther away.
It is further away. Yes.
So what we like to do on the show tonight, I do try to keep it to an hour, and Al is our timekeeper, but I have not seen Al chime in yet, so I don't know. But Al will always let me know when it's 8 o'clock, and then when I'm running over time. Al feels the need to tell me. So, so we like to concentrate on stories that should be getting more play in the press, but really aren't. They're just kind of like a blip and then they're gone, or they're not getting any kind of mainstream coverage at all. Maybe just on Newsmax, maybe on Fox, but even maybe not a lot there. And I just think they deserve a little bit more looking into, shall we say. So I found a piece in Newsweek by Ben Weingarten, and it's titled "Durham Special Counsel Revealed Regime Rot in Failures and Successes." And as I'd like to tell everyone, I put the links to all of these stories. You can read them again if you want. You can read them more in depth, because I'm not necessarily going to go in depth in some of these other bigger stories. The links will be in the description. And also, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcast. I would really, really appreciate it. Because if Tony gets a lot of thumbs up, maybe we could have him back. Just saying.
Maybe. And look, I'm doing my Tom Fenton really tight.
Oh, yeah.
I'll wear something even tighter next time for your audience. Tom and I are kind of competing,
you gotta ask Tom where he gets his ridiculously small T-shirts.
He gets them at the Walmart boys and boys. I mean, if you go in there and get a size like I think it's a boy size 20. I don't know what it is, but he gets it and I don't. So I don't. But they look good, Tom. They look good on you. Just saying.
They do. They look really good on Tom. They do look good on him. So, okay. So, everybody's talking about we heard about the whimper of the Durham investigation. It just kind of whimpered out, right? And Tony, you and I have had many conversations about Durham, right? We've had tons of conversations, and I have said from the get-go, nothing's coming out of this.
You were right.
Nothing's coming, and everybody told me
you were right.
Everybody was like, oh, you gotta wait, give it time. Go to Geneva telling me all the time, give it time. He's being very thorough. Don't worry. He's gonna go for the little fish. That's gonna lead to the big fish, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, never gonna happen. It's like I'm Nostradamus. I could have saved us millions and millions of dollars if people had just listened to me.
The thing is, though, you wouldn't have had be able to talk about it as much as we have. And a lot of us, no, Mary, a lot of us really thought, and I love Joe. I trust Joe to Geneva, and I like Victoria. But I think we were all those of us who have been down the path of accountability, just saying, since I'm a whistleblower and done a few things, that we really did have high hopes for Durham being independent. Let me just, do the air quotes like Chris Plant, independent, and someone who actually had the best interest of the country at heart. And instead, it was just one. I almost think they put on a show just to say they did something, because to me, it should have been a slam dunk. They misused intelligence capabilities. Clearly, they misused the budget. You saw recently all the budget stuff they were paying these knuckleheads to get verification. And I said at one point, my sources told me that a great percentage of the foreign counterintelligence budget during 2019, 2020, I'm sorry, 2016, 2017, went only to the Russia collusion investigation, which meant that they weren't doing other things, which is no big surprise. But by the fact that they were diverting so many resources to a domestic issue, that is to say, they were targeting a political enemy. To me, someone should have gone to jail. Whoever made that authority, James Comey, whoever authorized it, should be in jail right now. Just saying.
100%. And my frustration, everybody's like, "Oh, you're such a glass half empty." I'm like, yes, because I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than horribly disappointed. So, hello, Ty. Is this a friend of yours?
Yes, she's my former deputy, so she's hanging out in Hawaii.
Well, thank you for joining us, Tanya. James wants to know, is your shirt a throwback to the Spies?
That is Ace Tomato Company. That is the CIA's cover company and Spies Like Us.
Yeah. John, my friend John says, what a great guest, and he gives you a thumbs up. And Donna is laughing at us. She's laughing. I think she was laughing at your Tom Fitton imitation. We'll have to get Tom on I'll have to get Tom on to imitate you.
I didn't wear a tie. This is a medium, and I should have worn something like a small. Like I said, the boy's 20. So
yeah. I was going to say something about, like, too bad we don't have the Sears, big and tall shop anymore. Remember Sears had the hefty boys? Remember that?
They did.
They did hefty, and it was no big deal to tell a kid, oh, you're going to shop in the hefty boys section. So Ben goes through the whole Durham thing with Kevin Klein-Smith, who pled guilty to one count of making a false statement. And what happens? The DC bar restored his membership in good standing, and while he was still on probation, nothing happened to him. And everybody's like, don't worry, he's going for the bigger fish, So then we get James Sussman, Clinton campaign attorney, former DOJ official accused of lying, which we know he did. Dead to rights, lying. And a jury of his peers in Washington, D.C. is a jury of a bunch of liberals who hate Trump and who don't think there's anything wrong with not prosecuting him because, he was doing God's work. So
that's why I think, and Mary, to that point, I think that's why they picked D.C. They knew that there would be what they call jury nullification, that basically they knew they could bring it to the jury. He could have basically, put a bomb in Mar-a-Lago. The guy would have gotten off clean because, it's not against any of our guys. It's against someone else. And by the way, we have seen terrorists cleared years later by certain liberal presidents, just saying, and they have done. Mm-hmm. So I'm not surprised by that. I think if they really wanted to do it, they would have put it in a neutral district, at least a neutral district, and tried it there, because it was a federal crime. You didn't have to do it in D.C. You could have done it in a number of other jurisdictions and actually allowed for a fair and impartial jury to look at the facts. Right. And no matter what the facts were, Mary, the fix was in. And again, kudos to you. You called it correctly. Some of us were simply believing somehow by some miracle that you would see a jury do the right thing. And the other thing about this, just all those names you just went through, they were all politically connected and remain politically connected to the point of where you're going to see them again. This is the problem I have with our side, and our side being those who actually seek accountability and justice. Until someone is held accountable on the left in a very severe, demonstrable way, they're going to continue to do this, and there's just there's no stopping them. So you think Russia collusion is good? They got away with they're going to try something even bigger next time, and it's just going to go on and on and on. So
absolutely, until they go too far, as they always do, and then it finally blows up. Igor Danchenko, of course, acquitted on all charges that he had provided false statements to the FBI, and on and on. Now, here, but he is saying that the Danchenko case, we learned what Durham did do. It wasn't a total loss, because we learned that a whole bunch of things that the FBI did do, and you mentioned some of them. The FBI made Danchenko an informant after they knew he was lying. They paid him over $200,000 to talk about the abuse of money during the Trump presidency. They shut him up, which shielded him from scrutiny, and then it shielded therefore it shielded them from any kind of scrutiny. They offered Christopher Steele up to $1 million to prove the allegations in the dossier.
That's what I'm talking about. Right.
He refused. Offer me $1 million. Sure. What do you want me to say? My ethical bar is way lower. They ignored Danchenko's past that would have made him unfit for selection as an informant, including the fact that he had previously faced a counterintelligence probe. And he also revealed that their agents, the FBI agents, were operating under the Mueller special counsel investigation, limited the scope of the inquiry into the dossier, that ensured that any kind of damning information about the original investigation would remain hidden. So he really laid bare that the FBI is a dump and needs to be blown up, but not to the point enough where people are outraged about it, because everybody's like, even left and right are like, nothing, right? Because nobody went down for it.
Well, so to that point, the issue regarding the FBI, Mary, this is why I think Durham was forced to dump it. Because if you actually examine all that information you just laid out, it creates a pattern of wrongdoing by FBI officers. So the way they presented it to the court was the FBI was victimized. That's why they did it. It's like, oh, these guys were feeding all this information, and the FBI, they were all good guys. They just were trying to do their job, and they were trying to get to the bottom of it. The predicate of the whole thing was based on opposition research. Now, I'm speaking as a professional. You never take it. You don't even look at it. If I had an officer come to me, and I'm a retired, one part of my job in the old days was a counterintelligence special agent. I'm actually a retired federal officer as well as a foreign intelligence officer. You always seek, Mary, and I'm telling you from experience, independent, completely factual information from a source that has nothing to do with a political party or political movement. Period. You just don't do it. And because, maybe it's tainted from day one. And the whole dossier, the whole Steele dossier was created by people like Danchenko, who had like you point out, he was an asset. And what they did here, and this is why I think someone still needs to go to jail, the Hillary Clinton campaign and those who established that dossier were taking Russian feeder information. So we know in counterintelligence investigations, the bad guys will feed through a source information they want you to know. And they'll do it in such a way that will diminish your ability to understand what they're actually doing. And so instead of the FBI investigating him, like you just said, we're going to make him an asset and we're going to pay him $1 million. It's exactly the opposite thing to do. And I've said on Twitter, which I'm suspended from, I said on Twitter several times that Hillary Clinton is responsible for being Vladimir Putin's greatest asset, because she was willing to allow this mainstream Russian information that the Russians did want to get into our political system and upend it, which it did, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, go, absolutely.
It did not completely upend the credibility of Trump's victory, as well as set off this bogus investigation, the Mueller investigation, for 18 months. This was all what Putin wanted. So the ultimate person who should be held accountable to Hillary Clinton, because she knowingly took Russian disinformation, injected it into the body politic of the United States, and Mueller was the guy who was pushing, basically pumping it all through the bloodstream of the political system. So those two in particular need to be held accountable. And I still believe that if everything goes well, Trump comes back in or somebody else gets elected, they need to pick this up, because I don't believe there's any expiration date for going after somebody for espionage. And that's what this was. It was pure espionage on behalf of Vladimir Putin.
But beyond that, the Democrats always do what they're accusing you of doing.
Exactly.
They sought out foreign interference to sway our election, which is what we heard for so many years. Trump tried to sway the election meddle in the election with foreign interference. He brought in foreigners, into Putin when the Democrats literally were paying someone who was foreign to gather information.
Literally, yes.
Right. So they always accuse you of doing exactly what they're doing. So to me, that is treasonous, right? If you're doing something like that,
no doubt,
to influence the election.
So technically, we're not at war, so we can't get them on treason, but you can get them on espionage and sedition. So
you those are the two charges.
Yeah, to be charged with treason, technically you have to be at war with another state. So talk to Joe. Joe's the one that set me straight on that.
Well,
but
wait a minute. Give Joe Biden like a week.
No. Joe did nothing.
No. But I'm saying give Joe Biden a week. You want to be at war? I'm sure he can work that out.
Well, he's trying to push it. I'm just saying. I mean, we could talk about that a little bit too if you want. But I'm just saying that to your point, Mary, that there are people who acted in bad faith, who literally, I mean, at the highest levels of government, they always say, "Oh, Trump." was like, no, these people literally undermined everything the FBI could have done to protect the election. And they did in such a way that the damage is still being felt to this day, to the point, and I'll just say this, your audience may not like it, the FBI needs to be disbanded.
Yes.
My advice, I was the National Security Advisor to Trump 2020. If I'm reappointed, if he runs, my first suggestion is to bifurcate the FBI into three pieces and get rid of it. Take its foreign counterintelligence mission and split it between DHS and the DOD. DOD, I was a DOD special agent. We do counterintelligence stuff, do it better than the FBI, just saying. And then you take the counterterrorism mission, do the same thing. You split it between DHS and DOD, and you take the investigative function and you give it to the U.S. Marshals, and that's it. You just shut it down. You make it clean, and because it's just no fixing it at this point. The organization is so corrupt at the mid-level. I'm not saying all agents are bad. I have a number of agents who I've served with in the field. I've been undercover with the FBI. I still respect those folks. But the people above them, the people who have become the political apparatchiks of the Democrat Party, there's no fixing that. So you've got to get rid of it. It's like a cancer. You got to cut it out and be done with it.
Yeah, I agree. Donna says Elon finished his deal. Maybe he'll let us back on Twitter. So maybe you and Donna can get back on Twitter.
There's a campaign to get me back. So we'll see.
I'll give Elon a call for you.
Please.
Yeah, Swalwell and Dianne Feinstein both had Chinese.
Well, and then there's been FBI agents who have been seduced by the.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's been like 3 occasions that I know that FBI agents who were working counterintelligence ended up sleeping with their FBI, with the female counterpart, Chinese counterpart, and surprise, surprise, they were compromised. Who would have thought? Who would have seen that coming? I mean,
But they were, they were taking one for the team, Tony.
Swalwell was definitely taking one for the team.
No. I got news for you. Fang was taking one for the team in that one. No, she was taking one for the team there. Who the heck wants to sleep with Eric Swalwell?
You've heard of, can I use the word strap-ons or not? I guess I don't think so.
Well, you just did. I don't have a buzzer. I
would have been dumped otherwise. Yes.
Oh, you would have. So very quickly, because we're spending a lot of time on this, and we have other stories, but this is so interesting to me. And Ben Weingarten says he has 2 theories about Durham's special counsel. The first is that the fix was in all along. Durham was and is essentially a captured element of the deep state who would never hold it to account because the DOJ was trusted with taking on their own institution. There's that theory. The second is that Durham did the best he could given the severe constraints. This was a scandal that might have to be understood to be too big to prosecute, and he just couldn't win on the DC home turf. He just like, as you had mentioned, he could do no more than bring cases.
Yeah. No, I think that both can be true. Both those theories can be true. And I think, and this is my theory based on direct experience, Durham and Bill Barr both were put in as fail-safes. I think there came a point after the Trump victory that whoever you want to call the deep state, whatever you want to call him, recognized that he was not going to be controllable. When they got rid of Jeff Sessions, they had to bring someone in who had the veneer of being a fair and honest broker, but someone who, if anything got too far out of hand, that is to say that if there's something that they thought Trump was going to win on, really, they were going to put the kibosh on it, which I know from personal experience when Bill Barr called me on one of the investigations I was running during the post-election investigation. So I'm just saying that after a certain point, I think these guys are designed to fail in such a way that will prohibit accountability. So that's based on my practical experience, just saying. So.
Well, it's very sad. Well, this was all right. So let's move on. We've heard the story about the RUBIO canvasser who was beaten down and had his facial reconstruction and the whole bit. And that story, of course, it kind of got some play in the media, but not a lot. But I wanted to share with you the way the far left is painting this. Are you ready for this? So I'm sure a lot of you know the website Jezebel. Have you seen that, Jezebel? It's kind of like a far left BuzzFeed type thing where, what kind of Pinot Noir, what kind of wine should you have at your post-rioting party, that type of thing. Take this personality test to find out. So there's a piece by Laura Bassett, and she writes here, when she saw this whole thing come out and she saw this play out and Ted Cruz come out and talk about it, she said, I immediately smelled a rat, especially considering that Hialeah, Florida is a Republican stronghold. As the day goes on, it's become increasingly clear that the story didn't happen the way Rubio said it did. First, the victim in question has been identified as Christopher Monzon, a white supremacist nicknamed the Cuban Confederate, who participated in the neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, has a history of violence, and is deeply involved in Miami Republican politics. Now, remember, in Charlottesville, the vast majority of people who went there were not neo-Nazis. The vast majority of people who went there to protest, say, we don't want you to take this statue down. There were grandmas, there were little kids, there were people who were just from the neighborhood or who felt that history is important and you don't take this down. But if you attended, you were now a neo-Nazi.
That
white supremacist.
Well, that's the whole. Anybody who's not an extreme leftist to them is a white supremacist. And
right.
I mean, right here where I live now, there's a big debate. This city, Eatonton, has resisted removing the Confederate statue. I did an editorial recently saying we should keep it. It reminds me of two things. First, the South got defeated. Every time I see one of those statues, Mary, it's not about white supremacy. It's like, you got your asses kicked. You need to remember that. And I resent the fact that the Democrats, who were the Confederates, continue to try to rewrite history and pretend that they weren't the ones who supported slavery. Sure. I always try to remind people of history. The Southern Democrats and the Northern Democrats wanted Lincoln to stop, to basically end the war so that the South could keep their slaves. Democrats, just saying. And so I get really tired when I see this attempting to rewrite history. And I think that's the second thing. The left should not be permitted to destroy its own legacy. And I think that's a big part of this. So when people like you're talking about to come forward, it's not about supporting white supremacy. It's about the fact that, no, we don't want the left to destroy their legacy and the reminders which are there. So I really find that this whole narrative that they try to paint that, oh, everybody's a white supremacist is insane and dangerous. And
of course it is.
And in this case, the evidence is clear. This kid was attacked by the left folks. And that's it.
Well, listen to how she goes on. She says, a police report obtained by the Miami New Times confirms that a man has been arrested in the attack, 22-year-old Javier Jesus Lopez, who has, quote, a violent past and is out on felony bond, according to NBC News reporter Mark Caputo. The police report says that Lopez allegedly told Monzon, you can't pass by here, this is my neighborhood, and then before slamming him to the ground. But the report, quote, does not mention a political dispute, nor does it indicate that Lopez targeted Monzon because Monzon is a Republican, according to the New Times. The police report also does not indicate that Monzon was attacked by 4 animals, as Rubio claimed in his dehumanizing tweet, though police told CBS they're looking to talk to 2 other possible people of interest. So they say, well, it wasn't political because he didn't say anything about him political. The guy was wearing a Rubio Cruz a t-shirt, Rubio the Cruz hat or something like that.
Of course.
It was obviously politically motivated, right? He was obviously attacked because he is a white supremacist, a semi-fascist, a radical, a Nazi, and on and on and on. And everything else from the president on down, they call us, and eventually people act out and they're like, oh, well, that has nothing to do with me. But Donald Trump decided to riot.
So, and that's where they've, I think, the gig is up on all that. There was a focus group you probably saw a few days ago that MSNBC ran, where they questioned all these voters. Like, no, it wasn't an insurrection. Antifa does worse. And I think, Mary, that people are starting to wake up because, yeah, it's political violence, and the left constantly does this. Oh, it was justified, or it really wasn't violence. The guy actually was simply trying to help the guy pick up his hat, and he beat him up when he tried to pick it up. It was an accident. So, but I think people need to be aware that this is what they do. And I've known a lot of people in my life who have a variety of beliefs. And you know, the only person I've ever met who was a white supremacist, and I shook his hand, a guy named Joe Biden. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. No, Joe Biden.
Well, he has said some very racist things. You're right. So, he said some very racist.
All the people I've met and all my life and all the people I've been around, you know, I've been around a lot. The only person who's ever espoused truly venomous, just degrading comments regarding race, you know, about, remember he said this black, oh, it was great during the pandemic. A black lady brought me my food. It's like, really? Really?
Well, he just talked about user fees. Like, it's not fair to make people pay more for the more legroom on planes because you know, especially for large people, it's not fair to them because you know, he basically said that the people who are the large people are African American women. It's more likely people of color and women and people of color. Like, you just called black women fat. I like, what?
So that's what I mean. It's like these people hide it, or Nancy Pelosi. Well, we need someone to stay and pick plants, pick crops.
That's right. Yeah, to pick the crops.
That was just recent. That was within the last 4 weeks. She said that.
They made a comment. Didn't somebody make a comment about cleaning? We need maids.
They've made that. So that's my point.
It's comment about that too.
Anything you said it earlier too. It's like anything they're doing, they try to pin it on someone else, and this is a record. So and. I, you know, and the violence thing, just one last thing before we go off this.
No, go ahead.
No, the violence thing is something that they have accepted as political speech for their entire life. Who did the riots in the 1960s during the Democrat convention? I think it was 68? It was the Democrats. It was the Democrat on Democrat. It wasn't Republicans out there trying to tear down things. So I'm just saying that they've had this record, they've sustained this record, and they always try to say it's someone else or it's justified. But this is one of the things that I think we need to do, those who feel that politics should be based on merit, on a conversation based on facts and the exchange of ideas, rather than trying to intimidate somebody. And that's what's dangerous about the current environment, is this idea that if they don't agree with you, they'll do something violent, and they use that as a tool. So
absolutely. Well, did you see when Ted Cruz was on with the Yapping Yenses on The View? Yes. Tanya, projection is the name of their game. 100%, Tanya, 100%. And what is James says, the Kennedy Dems versus the Obama Dems, two different monsters. They've moved so far to the left, they're near Stalinists. Most of the GOP has moved so far to the right, they're unrecognizable from the Reagan era. I think he's right.
I think the neocons are on their way out. And I don't disagree. I think we had a real takeover of the party by the neocons, you know, Bush 41. I could tell you all stories about the transition from Reagan to Bush 41. We don't have time for it tonight, but it was a real change of direction of the country, not for the better. And I think the Bush 43 folks were much more aligned with, I'd say, Obama in many ways than they were with the Reagan folks. And Liz Cheney is the ultimate expression of the neocon dream, if you will. So whatever she says is fact, is the fact that she lives with, despite the fact that she lives in some alternate reality. But I think that both parties have suffered from extremism. So just, you know.
Oh, yeah. But it's going back to the violence in the Democrats, when Ted Cruz was on with the Yapping Yentas on The View, And, Whoopi Goldberg's like, oh, well, because he got them on the double standard about when it's okay to say that the election's been stolen. And he had a list with him of all the times Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi or a Democrat said that, and they, of course, Joy Behar has never let a guest finish a sentence ever, like ever. She is awful. She jumps right. He got 4 words out and she was on him. And then they all jump on him, right? And he kept going. Good for him. He did a great job. He kept going. And he pointed out their hypocrisy. And Whoopi Goldberg was like, but it's different. But it's different because our side didn't storm the Capitol and our side didn't engage in violence. And Ted goes, wait a minute. Am I the only one? Do you not remember the summer of 2020? We had an entire year of Antifa burning down every city in this country. And Whoopi Goldberg goes, no, I don't know anything about that. Like, I was like, what? What? Like, I think they were so deer in the headlights because they usually effectively, they're like wildebeests or, like when they hunt in a pack. Who is it? Hyenas hunt in a pack and they take down the wildebeest, So they're smaller, but there's a bunch of them, usually 5. That's interesting. Wonder if there's a little symbolism. And they take down the wildebeest, right? Because they just don't give, everywhere it turns, there's another one there going after it. Right. That's what they do to any kind of conservative guest on that show. And Ted Cruz didn't stop. He kept going. And he just made them drop the veneer. And it was great because I don't even think they realized what they did until afterwards, what he got them to do. It was masterful. I love him for that.
Well, they are not the most self-aware bunch. Just saying. I mean, just saying. It's like I watched the outtakes of the thing. It was like, oh my god, people are adults. I mean,
I cannot watch that show. I used to watch. I can't because when I watch that show, I find myself I'm dumber at the end of it. Right? I lose fewer brain cells watching 90 Day Fiance than I do watching The View. I'm dumber after that. After 90 Day Fiance, I'm pretty much okay.
At least if you watch The Bachelor, you get some good fashion tips out of it. You don't get that out of The View. Just saying. I mean, oh, that's a nice suit. I would like that dress. That's a nice dress. Yeah.
I was going to say, how do you know this?
Well, you just pointed it out. I can't watch The View, so I can watch something else.
Joy is as much a bitch as Hillary without the body count. Very good, James. That's excellent. Okay.
By the way, have you seen Joy Behar before she reaches the studio to get the makeup on? Just saying.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Just saying. I saw her one time in New York, and it was like, really?
Well, I will say that makeup and bright lights are a girl's best friend. Hold on a second.
There you go.
It's very forgiving. The brighter the light.
I'm just saying that may be true, but that bright light won't help Joy. Just saying.
Yeah, well,
you'd have to have the son of Alpha Centauri to help. Supernova. A supernova might help. Just saying. I'm never gonna trash a woman without makeup because I understand the pain. So I will never trash a woman. I can go after her for her horrid personality, for her venom, for things that she can change, which is her personality. Her looks, what are you gonna do? She's getting old. It happens. We're all getting old. Trust me, I get that.
Exactly. So
I still stand by the supernova. Just saying.
All right. So we were just talking about Joe Biden and how he's made so many racist comments and, just talking about African-American women and, because fat people need more legroom and can't afford it in airplanes. So I guess we have to give that skinny people, I guess, have to sit in the back, like squished in a seat like this.
But if you're big, Mary, they have to go.
Yeah. Just run up and put in the overhead.
Can you help me with my friend, Fred? We're just going to shove him up right here.
I would like it noted there, we're laughing about this, but if you have ever ridden New Jersey Transit, which I had to do when I was working in New York, I was on New Jersey Transit a lot. And people see a thinner woman and they're like, I'm sitting there, right? Because so I would fluff up. I would try to make myself bigger, right? So I would have my bag and I have my coat open, like trying to fluff up to look like there was more of me than there is. And I was always sit in a 3-seat thing. Like they have the 3 and the 2, because if you sit in the 2 and somebody sits next to you, you're like, oh God. If it's a 3, very rarely will someone sit in the middle. Like only the really super socially unaware will sit in the middle. Everybody, if you see 2 people and there's a seat in the middle, most people just stand, unless one of the people is thin and not taking up the whole seat. So I would used to have to, especially like winter, I'd be like, okay, because I got at one end at the very first stop and I got off at the very last stop. So I would do my best to try to just fluff out. So it's hard. It's hard is all I'm going to say. We need big seats too.
We do.
Well, with those arms, I'm just saying.
My Tom Fitton arms, I got to have 2 rows of seats open so I can just kind of stretch out. Is that big enough?
Stop! You're mean. Tom, we're both going to get like a nasty email from Tom Fitton. So
I know. Tom, we're just kidding. It's a joke. Really.
I love Tom.
I do too.
All right. So according to USA Today, 40% of Hispanics and 21% of Blacks are backing the Republican Party. And this is a big deal. And to James's point, though, how the GOP has changed. He said they moved so far to the right, they're unrecognizable from the Reagan era. But yet, I think the tent is bigger than it was in the Reagan era. I also saw today they were reporting on, I forget where I watched it, so apologies, Fox, Newsmax, one of the two, that the GOP has more diverse candidates running in the midterms than the Democrats do. The GOP more diverse candidates than the Democrats.
Right.
Sort of like when there's 5 empty seats, but the psycho picks the seat right next to you. Exactly, James. Exactly. So to his point though, but I think there's a shift, but I think it's because of values shifting, and not values shifting, people waking up to where the values lie.
Right.
USA Today said the issue of inflation and the feeling that the White House hasn't done enough to address it is helping Republicans score significant inroads among Hispanic and Black voters, both demographic groups that the Democrats have long relied on for support. In 2020, Trump earned 12% of the Black vote and 32% of the Hispanic vote. Both of those were record highs. Both of those were records. If the USA Today numbers prove true on election night, Democrats are done. Even if the GOP gains 15 to 18% of the Black vote, it will be a huge game changer. And Democrats are dead in the water. Overall, the GOP has increased its support by 9 points and gained 8 points on the Democrat Party. And they go into this piece and says, let's start with the economy. And they say Democrats can't blame the failure of the cities on anybody else. Right. And the majority of people who live in those cities that are hurting the most are Black, right? And they've been voting Democrat for 50 years, 60 years, and their cities are terrible. And what did Trump do? Trump looked at the Black community and said, do you have anything to lose by voting for me? You've been voting the same way for 3 generations now, and has it helped you? What have you gotten for it?
No, and some of the most spectacular cities in the old days, Chicago, Detroit, 60 years ago, amazing places of civilization. I mean, Detroit used to be a mecca, all the motor city. It was an amazing place. Yeah. And now it's unlivable. The same thing with Chicago. You see all these big corporations, Boeing and others, just leaving. It's like, we're done, we're out. And it's a shame because, Mary, those corporations bring a lot of wealth to the city. They are taxed and they have a lot of people. And so it's going to be a twofer for these cities, because you're going to see, I think, the population just decide we've had enough, we're going to move. And then these corporations aren't going to be there to provide the tax breaks. And that's what happened in Detroit. I mean, Detroit is a city that had everything. And it's really sad. And I think I'd like to believe people recognize that the party that they signed up to support abandoned it. Reagan used to always say, I didn't leave the Democrat Party left me. I think that's where a lot of these folks are at. And I sympathize with blue collar workers. I mean, the fact that labor still supports the Democrats, I just don't understand. because the Democrats are doing everything they can to diminish the value of the dollar, to diminish the value of labor, to diminish the value of a job that actually pays well and allows you a lifestyle. No, they don't want you to have that. We're going to give all those resources to illegal aliens. And it's just amazing. So I think you're seeing refugees. Can I talk about refugees for 1 second? Because we did it in the previous show. So one of the things we're trying to do, to your point, Mary, is we want people to think for themselves, because a lot of, and it shouldn't be about left or right, because I think a lot of these folks, Mary, would never think of themselves as conservatives. They're just fed up and they want something new. They appreciate the values that the old Democrat Party preached about, but they lost track of. So what I've found, I don't think they're going to mind. Jen Mathias, who was the lead singer of the Bell Star, she's black. She's fed up with what's going on in England, and she's working with us now on the fact that, geez, woke is just destroying everything from art to culture to the economy, and everything that she valued as an artist. She's an '80s rock star, is being destroyed by the left. And another member of I mentioned Cherie Currie of the Runaways. Cherie, I don't think would ever consider herself a super conservative, but she's fed up, like a number of other rock and rollers who just said, this is not the Democrat Party that I was part of, is not the Democrat Party that's today. Yeah. And I got to find something else. So I think if you see it going on in culture and in rock and roll, I think it's happening all up and down every aspect of the culture right now. And I'd like to believe these minorities should understand that the party that's saying it will help them is doing everything they can to destroy their very values, and it's dangerous. And I hope they do make the switch. So
well, they go on to say also the Democrat Party's open embrace of the transsexual agenda does not play in the Black and Hispanic community.
It does not.
It's a big deal. It does not at all. And the Christian Black population does not want what the Democrats are pushing. They can, gay porn in schools, the permanent mutilation of children through puberty blockers, chemical castration, sex change operations, etc. And it's also the Democrats that want to defund the police and bail, open the prisons. And who does that affect most? Black Americans in cities, because that's where these people go. It's like why you see the change in the Hispanic community. When these illegals come to this country, where do they go? They go to the poorer areas. They go where they know people, right? So they go to these largely Hispanic areas that are chock-a-block with 10,000 people living in a house, but they're victimizing the ones that are criminals. They aren't all criminals, except for the crime of crossing the border illegally. But what's that among friends? But the child rapists, the sex offenders, the murderers. Who are they murdering? Whose children are they sexually? Exactly. Their own community. Exactly. They're sexually assaulting their own community's children. They're raping their own community's women. And that does not play. It only plays for so long before you're like, what? Out. Go. Right. I'm not doing any more of this. And I don't think the Democrats have really have given this much thought through. No. They took these groups and they took their votes for granted.
Well, Mary, can I ask you a personal question? I hope you don't mind. Your audience won't mind, I don't think. So,
Sure.
No, I mean, I really don't understand why the you're still a woman, right? And you hadn't started transition or anything. I mean, I know you're.
Hold on.
Just asking.
Yep.
Okay.
I had
just want to make sure, because I am completely baffled why the women's movement is not fighting against the Democrats about the men's intrusion into women's sports and women's lifestyles. I mean, this has been, talk about the war on women. This is it. I never thought I'd see the day where you see a willing push of men pretending to be women into women's sport. It's dehumanizing the way they've done this. And I don't understand how the women's movement is not standing up saying, whoa. I mean, I don't understand.
There's two things. I'm not
trying to be a wise ass, which I normally am.
No, I understand. There's two things that are happening. Number one, on the left, you have the pyramid of victimhood. Everybody on the left wants to be a victim, because by being a victim, I get value and I get more power than you because I'm special. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be a victim. So women were at the top of the victimhood pyramid. Well, guess what? And men were pushed down to the bottom, right? So women now are being pushed down by men who think they're women, because it's a mental problem. right? It's an issue. And if you say anything different, you're transphobic. And so the women are like, wait, what just happened? But this is what happened on the left. But the other thing that's happening is, you see, there was a parade that James and I talked about probably about a month or so ago. And it was an LGBT alphabet parade, right? The cops had to get involved because the trans women got in a fight with the lesbians, because the lesbians said that they're not women and did exactly what you're talking about. You are not women, right?
I know lesbians who feel that way. No, I know lesbians who feel that exact way.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So because these men are coming up and they're saying, well, I'm a woman, but they're dating women. So then they're saying, well, I'm a lesbian. And the lesbians are like, no, you are not a lesbian. No. And I'm like, my money's on the lesbians personally, because if it gets physical, they're taking down those boys, right? The soy boys are going down and the lesbians will beat their butts. So the good thing about that is we're watching the left cannibalize its own, right? They're going to eventually destroy themselves, as happens with all of these movements. You know, it does. Union people, Donna says the union people need to wake up. Yes, they do.
They do.
But I have to tell you, that was absolutely, the parade story was one of my favorite stories ever, because I was like, man, I'd be sitting on the sidelines going, honey, get me a beer. This is going to take a while.
I like that. No, Mary, I used to fly off missions in the Middle East, of the Far East, in Japan and Korea, and I'd fly back through Minneapolis, back before Minneapolis became a hellhole. And I used to go down. Some of your listeners may know where it's at Cafe Weird in uptown Minneapolis. And I would sit with my lesbian friends and we'd watch girls. It was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a blast. I mean, hey, she's pretty hot. Yeah. I mean, why not? We all like the same thing, right? So I will always go with a real lesbian over a fake lesbian any day. Take it to the bank,
right,
as Joe Biden would say.
Yeah. I'm not joking.
I'm not joking.
Because the men are at a lower middle tier in their own gender. Exactly. But right. Exactly.
Yes.
And the women are allowing it to happen, but it is fun to watch. Okay, one more story, and I know you have a meeting to run off to, and I don't know where Al is. I hope he's okay, because Al's usually one of the first in here, so I hope Al's all right. People in the United States are increasingly using their political views to inform their religious beliefs, which I find weird. 25% of U.S. adults say that they've considered leaving their religion because of disagreements with their political affiliation. I don't know, as a born and raised practicing Catholic, I mean, the most I'm going to do is Episcopalian, because Catholics, if you're Episcopalian, just so you know, the Catholics, we call that Catholic light, because it's like all the pomp and circumstance without the pesky rules. So, you know, like disaffected Catholics become Episcopalian. That's pretty much
right.
It's kind of like people from New York, once they get tired of all the crap they voted for, they move to New Jersey. It's the path. It's kind of the thing. They call it church shopping. It's become more common over the last several years, according to a study from Monmouth University. Roughly 52% of adults have shopped for different churches, and another 1/3 have done so more than once. Now, I can tell you, my husband and I, you know, because when you're Catholic, you're assigned your church based on where you live geographically, and you're not supposed to go to another church. And you can go to another church, but you can't like get married in another church. So when my husband and I wanted to get married, we had to go to our home parish and ask for permission to get married at Villanova, because that's where I wanted to get married, was at Villanova. So we had to ask our priest to get a letter.
Right. Yeah.
So to get our letter so we could go there.
Right.
But we had a priest, openly gay, which I had no problem with. I'm like, you do you, Padre. It doesn't bother me at all. That's fine with me. I think we should be a little more inclusive. I'm okay with that.
I don't care who you sleep with. Yeah, I'm of the same mind. So.
I'm cool. But the Obama sticker on the back of the car, and the homilies started becoming political, and then the ode to unions in the bulletin on, you know, Labor Day, and I was like,
yeah,
I'm out, Padre. And so we went to another church.
Well, maybe that's the point of the article, is that people see people's affiliation with certain parties and say, I have a friend who basically does not like his current church because it's become woke. And personally, I mean, I've had some experience in this. I became a Druid, not so much because of politics, because of the nude ceremonies. I mean, something about nude ceremonies fire. I mean, but that's not political. That's just practical for me. It's
I was going to say because the women are hot. That's why you became a druid.
That's the only
is that
kind
what it
you
is?
want to have in the druid ceremony. Absolutely. You got to be selective. Anyway, but back to the point. I have friends who are devout Catholics, who are devout Christians, who basically have seen their church do this 90-degree turn to become woke, where transgender issues and all of these social issues replace religion. It's almost this secular thing. And I all joking aside, I have a deep faith in God. I would not have lived through the hell I put myself through and the stuff I did if not for someone much wiser and much more powerful than me getting me through. So I have a deep and abiding faith. With that said, some of those who go to organized religion and participate see a material change in what they were brought up with. And would that be an accurate statement of what you just stated? That basically you were brought up with values, and when you saw this guy with different values, it was like, whoa, I'm not sure if I want to do that anymore. I
would be okay with his different values because I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not going to sit in church when I want to hear an interpretation of the gospel and tell me what the gospel is supposed to be about. But it starts to become infused with politics.
Right. Exactly.
It's not the Ebenezer Baptist Church. We don't do that. Right. That's not what it's supposed to be about. Don't slip things in the bulletin about, union stuff and this and that and everything else. Stop it. Just stop. And then but the thing is I didn't change denominations. And what they're saying here is that the winners are evangelical Protestants. They are the largest coalition in the Republican Party now. And secularism, people are just saying, well, I'm out and leaving altogether. I could not become something other than Catholic. Like I can't do that. That's the way it's not a religion. It is a way of life. If you are born, it's kind of like Judaism.
It's a culture.
For a lot of people.
Cultural commitment. To a way that you've been. I get it.
Right. It's a thing. So call it a cult. I don't care if people have told me that it is. That's fine. Not you, but other people have told me.
Mary, my Catholic friends always get upset when I bring up the Pope Pius orgies with his daughter in the Vatican. So it's okay. I
never heard about that, but they didn't teach that at Villanova.
I know. There you go. So
I will say at Villanova, though, the priests, we had a monastery on campus and then we had a seminary. The monastery and the seminaries, best parties on campus.
Probably the best priests, wine too. They probably make their own wine.
and the ones who were studying to be priests had the best parties ever. So spiritualized personally, I don't anticipate an organized one will meet all my needs, but I may still opt to engage. In the end, it's between us and God. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It's just interesting to me.
I've always considered myself a Gnostic by the fact that I have a deep and abiding faith, but I don't feel the need to have an organization between me and God. That's just kind of my personal view. I've always believed that you can have an abiding faith without the culture. I mean, I grew up in, I was a military brat, so I grew up all over the place. At one point I had Mormons coming and telling me about, I was actually, by the way, Mary, I was actually a ringer for a Mormon volleyball team while I was in Arizona. It was great. They were trying to recruit me, and I would be out drinking every Friday night. And Saturdays, they'd get me out when I was half drunk and just, hey, would you go play volleyball for us? Sure. So
when you said you were a ringer, I thought like the guy who rang the doorbell, like if you ever
I was the one
saw Book of
winning
Mormon,
the games for him. I had a talent for volleyball. I had a hell of a serve, just saying. So, but
that's funny. That's funny. But they talk in this piece about how a large number of Christians moved into the Republican Party during the 70s and 80s as the party became increasingly conservative. And, when I say I just couldn't imagine going to another church, when you talk about, I don't look as there being an organization between me and God. But, when you're raised, when people are like, well, why do you go to mass every week? I'm like, well, you know what? Considering all the wonderful things that I am blessed with, and, I do believe that God has answered my prayers in a lot of ways. And I do ask for help when I need it. And I do want a response. Can I just take an hour out of my week to say thank you? Like, that's just the way I would go to God in his house and say, hey, how you doing? I actually got up, got dressed, put makeup on, did my hair just to come here and say thank you. You know,
That's
like,
right.
so that's the way I look at it. And I don't look at it, I don't view it as like, oh, there's an organization between me and God, you know, and I participate with the quote unquote church to the degree with which I'm comfortable. I used to be very involved. My husband and I were very involved with our church until we got our woke priest. And then, you know, he fired everybody on the parish council and he did this and he did that. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on we didn't agree with. And so we left and we're not as involved now. We got a new guy. And, not we, you know, we've got two priests and
So
the
would you say it
secondary
was
guy I like.
So would you say it was a fellowship thing as much as a religious experience where you were meeting with those of like mind? Would that be an accurate representation?
Yeah, yes, but yeah, and also in our town, there's one church. It's 3,500 people. There's one church. It's a Catholic church. Our town, our school here has one class for each grade. There is no cafeteria. I mean, they have a cafeteria, but there's no kitchen. So the kids either bring lunch and, you know, eat outside or at their desk or, you know, at a table, or they go to home or go to the pizzeria or whatever. So when the eighth grade, everything in this town happens in the parish center because there's a beautiful.
So it is a fellowship thing. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But it's not just the Catholics who are part of it. You know, the Catholic, the Altar Rosary Society, of which I was part, we ran this big house tour every year before Sandy, which, by the way, 10 years ago, I cannot believe it's been 10 years this weekend. But before Hurricane Sandy, we ran this big house tour. The police officers would do the traffic for free. The guys would volunteer. The treasurer was Jewish. We had a Muslim on the committee, right? But it fitted the church because the Boy Scouts met at the parish center. You know, the eighth grade had used the kitchen for their pancake breakfast. You know, like, so everything happened there.
But that's the point, is that everything was integrated and you guys appreciated each other for your strengths and values. And that's what woke culture is doing to destroy. They're trying to basically say, if you're 100%. A Muslim, you got to be with the Muslims. If you're Black, you got to be with, and so it's the antithesis of what you were brought up with. And I would argue that's what the left is trying to do, is trying to say, oh, no, all this integration stuff, that's not what's good. And I think that's why you saw from your woke priest, it's like, I can't do this. And I think that's what a lot of other people are seeing. That like any other institution, the left has been successful in basically infiltrating those who are committed to their political cause rather than the values of the organization. And that's what I think is really dangerous, is those very values you just said make a strong community. People would hang together. And you can't hang together if you're all kind of off in your corners trying to make the other person the other and attack them. So
very, very true. So you've got some fans. I'd have to walk out if I was preached to about being woke and it didn't sit well. We get enough proper. Exactly. We actually walked out of mass when we were on vacation one year, years and years and years ago. My husband and I walked out because the priest was on a tear about doctors. And my husband's a physician, about, because he was an anti-abortion thing. And these doctors who, you know, they don't care about patients, and doctors are this and doctors are bad. And my husband's like, I'm taking my doctor money and I'm walking out the door before they pass the plate. And that was it. And out we went. And we left. I don't care. So listen, before we run out of time, you have a lot of fans. People love that you're on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. Well, I appreciate you asking me. It was great.
What are you up to? Can anybody watch you? You podcast? Where can we catch you, Tony?
Yeah, so we are in the process of transitioning. Well, not that way. Transitioning the London Center. No, of course not like that. We're transitioning the London Center to Project Sentinel. The basic same principles that Dr. London established. But Sentinel is going to be focused on the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and those ideas you were just talking about, Mary, the idea of cooperation, of culture, of community coming together. And we feel that we represent those who have been essentially abandoned by their political parties. And we want to be their home. We want to be that place. We consider ourselves the cultural, kind of the insurgency, cultural insurgency. And again, we're bringing some very diverse people, and Jen, like I said, Jen Mathias from the Bell Stars in England, Shuri Curry, in California. There's a few others I've been talking to behind the scenes. So I think we'd like to see this, people show up and work with us as kind of a think tank that focuses on practical national security, practical economics, practical issues relating to spirituality. And look, I don't know if you remember this, Mary. I mean, people tend to forget that the very values you talked about regarding Catholic religion were actually inculcated in the founding fathers and the documents they used to establish the country. Those values are part of our fabric. And I think we've gotten way far away from them. And while I always joke about being a Druid, maybe I am, the idea should be is that we will accept people from all faiths. And
Right.
the idea of separation of church and state wasn't saying that, oh, we have to separate religion from the state. It was to protect religion from the state. So the state couldn't interfere like it's doing now, trying to dictate to people, if you must give contraceptions, you must make a cake. Those are the things that the founding fathers found inimical to the national interest. And so we're saying, let's get back to basics. Let's find a way for us to reestablish cohesive thinking of facts using our God-given ability to actually interact with each other in a peaceful way. And that's what we're trying to do with Project Sentinel. So you'll see this transition, not that kind. This transition over the next few months as we start rolling this out. I think people are going to like it, and they're going to. And Thought to Action is our podcast, which we express all of our thoughts. And we've had a number of these things that people can check out at the London Center, at our Thought to Action website on Twitter. I mean, our website on YouTube. So we're on YouTube. So that's it.
Oh, you are too. Okay, and it's Thought to Action.
Thought to Action, yes.
Okay, we're going to have you back because I would love to talk about community and all those things, because I think that people are hungry for that.
They are.
I think we've raised a generation. I am shocked at people in their 30s, 40s, even like the millennials, who don't know their neighbors, who don't,
exactly.
There's none of that. They don't know how to do things, there's just none of that sense of community. And we know all our neighbors. And again, 10 years ago, starting today was when Sandy moved in, started 10 years ago today. And, after Sandy, we had cargo containers on either side of our street. Like we weren't going anywhere, but it was our neighbors who helped you, like it's the neighbors who all helped each other the morning after. Like there were just kids, literally teenagers, walking around trying to help people clear debris and trying to do things.
Right.
And that is missing, that sense of community. That is missing. And I think it's so important. And I think a lot of it has to do with where you live. Like here, everybody knows everybody. It's only 3,500 people. So I get it. And we see each other a lot at community events, but I also see that kind of dwindling. We had a fireman's fair, and my husband and I go and we work a booth, the whole night, the whole time. We have a great time. You see, you do it, it's a great time. But I notice younger people, they're like, I'll write a check. Like they'd rather write a check than volunteer.
Right.
There's definitely a change, and I don't know how you get that back, but maybe we can have you come back on.
I'd love to.
We can talk about what you guys are doing.
Well, and I love just chatting about the news that people don't get to and then lead into this. But yeah, Mary, I'd love to come back. I appreciate your time. I always thought we had a great chemistry on the air when we were doing it. So I'm happy to be back on with you, and I'll be happy to join you anytime I'm available. So this is fun. And I appreciate
this worked out great.
Good comments.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Donna gives you American Stars and applause on Getter and said, cool. So we will definitely get Tony back. I want to get you to your meeting. Thank you. Mwah. I love you, my friends. Miss you. And thank you for doing this. And we'll do this again. Everybody.
Thank you for not being against Druids. I appreciate it.
How can anybody be against Druids? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the podcast, please tell your friends about it. I will be back with James on Tuesday for Life with Mary Walter, which is the Everything But Politics podcast. We have fun on that. 7:15 on YouTube and Getter. You watch the exact same way. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye.
The content they have sat on, protecting Hunter and the big guy, the rule of law they've spat on. Where's Hunter's laptop? gent, son of the president. Lately his paintings have been selling. Hunter has no craft. Man, it's all just graft. Hot